Here we go. This is our second web conference, Deacons Talking on the Road to Emmaus. And we have with us, very fortunate to have Julie Lytle, the Executive Director of Province 1, who is making all of this possible and inspired us to take on this project. This is being brought to you as part of the New England Deacons Network, which is a network of deacons and those involved in diaconal ministry in the New England area and the New England diocese. And tonight we have a special guest presenter, Deacon Stan Baker from Vermont, who is going to be presenting a deacon's eye view of General Convention 2015. And I will leave it to Stan to introduce himself more fully as he presents to us about the convention that is coming up in June. Before we do that, if we could introduce ourselves, so if you can just say your name and where you are from and anything that you think would be good for us to know. And please know, too, that we're recording this, both the video and the audio, so that Julie can prepare it and make it available as an archive, so people who aren't able to join us tonight will be able to join us in their own time and in their own way. So why don't we start with you, Maureen?
Okay. I'm Maureen Hagan. I'm from the Diocese of Oregon, and I am the Vice President, President-elect of Association for Episcopal Deacons, and I will be at the convention, and I am the one trying to coordinate the legislative work of the deacons there.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm Catherine Cook, and I'm Archdeacon of the Diocese of Vermont.
Great. Thank you. Now it's your turn, Jan.
I'm sorry. I'm Jan Grinnell, Archdeacon, Diocese of Rhode Island. I am also deputy, clergy deputy from Rhode Island to General Convention, and I'm serving on the Alcohol and Drug Legislative Committee.
Fantastic. Great. So I think we'll turn it over to Stan, and as we did in our first web conference, when Stan starts presenting, we'll ask all of us participants to turn off our cameras so that we can focus on the screen and the materials that he would like to present to us, and then we'll be invited to turn them back on for the discussion portion of our evening. So
will you open with a prayer, Kyle?
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, the Lord be with you.
And also with you.
And also with you.
Gracious God, we give you thanks for this opportunity to be in conversation across the miles, across the Ethernet. We give you thanks for the privilege of serving you and having colleagues, as we do, to do this ministry together. We thank you for the wisdom that we anticipate sharing this evening. We hope and pray that you will guide our thoughts and our conversations to your glory and your service. We pray this all in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 So I like the screen, that screen. If we can actually just keep that and keep our phones on, we'll be able to see the documents, and also I can see if people want to break in with questions.
Sure.
I'm Stan Baker, and I'm Cathedral Deacon at the Cathedral Church of St. Paul in Burlington, Vermont, which is where Kathy served for many years. She is still the Archdeacon of the diocese, and I'm the active Cathedral Deacon. In my other time, I'm a psychotherapist. I work with children and families, adults who've survived trauma, people on the autism spectrum disorder, gay men. I have a fairly diverse clientele, and I've been doing that for 2 years. Before that, I was the clinical director at a large community mental health agency. I've been a deputy 3 times, and I think the first time I went, the first time I went as a lay alternate, and then I was a clergy deputy 2 more times in this year. I wasn't even aware. I was sort of very naive about the role of deacons at General Convention, and wasn't aware that there were some dioceses that will not elect deacons or not permit them to run for General Convention, And there's even, I believe, one or two dioceses that give their deacons a 1/7 vote. So it's sort of an interesting thought about how we stand in different parts of the country. I've always felt that we are servant leaders and that we need to be as proud of the leader part as we are of the servant part and mix those together in a balance. So I've been told that when the General Convention is in session, and we're the largest legislative body in North America, I would like to believe that's true. It's a very, very large group. The General Convention consists of two houses, the House of Deputies, which is half lay and half clergy, with 4 clergy deputies and 4 lay deputies from each diocese in the Episcopal Church, and then the House of Bishops, which is exactly what it says. It's both the active bishops. I believe the retired bishops can come and have voice but not vote. All the suffragans are there, so that is the second body. It's historically correct to say that the House of Deputies is the senior house for 2 reasons. One is we came into being first, about a decade before the House of Bishops came into being, and at one point we could override the House of Bishops. I believe they are now co-equal houses. But then that is very unusual in the Anglican Communion, because to have the non-bishop's house be able to veto and be equal in voice to the bishop's house, and that's something we're very proud of in the Episcopal Church. Came into being, the first convention was in 1783, and that was the first ordination of a bishop, as you probably know, in the Episcopal Church, when Samuel Seabury was ordained by 3 Scottish bishops, because people in the Church of England would not do it. That same year we had our first convention, and then the first House of Bishops, the first General Convention was in 1783. The House of Deputies was founded in 1785, and the House of Bishops in 1789. You notice I keep using the word deputy. That's on purpose, and it's something we learn again and again when we're being trained for convention. The idea is that a deputy is elected from his or her diocese, but is expected to pray deeply, sit with every resolution and every action, pray about it, and then vote one's conscience as it's determined by prayer, rather than being a delegate, which would imply that you are there to vote as your diocese has told you to vote. So it's not that deputies don't think about what folks back home want and what their parish or diocese is most interested in, but in the end you're expected to pray and come to a conclusion that's a mix that comes from your soul and from your conscience. Let's see. Some of the major issues coming up this year will be electing a new presiding bishop. We'll come back to that. 2 of the big resolutions I'm told that will be talked about a lot are the resolutions on marriage and the resolutions on restructuring the church, and also whether or not to make General Convention a unicameral body rather than 2 houses. That's getting more, if you read the Bishops and Deputies blog website, you'll see that's coming up more and more and more. And then obviously there are a lot of resolutions that are important to us as deacons, and we'll come back to those. So does everybody have in front of them this General Convention org chart? Yes? Good. So we don't have to spend a lot of time with this, but it just simply says what I've been saying. You see the House of Deputies on your left and the House of Bishops on your right. The House of Deputies is the president of the House of Deputies is Gay Jennings, who's, in my opinion, doing a wonderful job. She was elected in the last General Convention and has been doing some really nice work in terms of communication, organizing deputies, bringing younger deputies into positions of authority, that sort of thing. And then there is under her the Chancellor, the the executive director, of the General Convention. Then over on the other side, you see the House of Bishops. And then underneath this, on the left, committees, commissions, agencies, and boards, those are what they call them the CCABs. Those stand and do work for the 3 years for the triennium between each General Convention. And I won't read through these. You can see them under agencies and boards, joint standing committees, meaning that those are joint between the House of Deputies and the House of Bishops, committees and task forces. You'll see their marriage study. That was a task force that worked for the last 3 years to look at all of the canons about marriage and to decide what to report back to General Convention on marriage in general, not same-sex marriage anymore, but all marriage, and what kinds of canonical reforms might we want to make. Then you'll see the standing commissions. Those worked for the 3 years in between. I was on the Standing Commission on Health and was the chair of a subcommittee on full inclusion of people with developmental disabilities. That report can be found in the Blue Book reports, and largely what's there is material that I got together after a church-wide survey and a couple of focus groups. Then the Executive Council, you'll see on the right, and that continues ongoing. At the Church Center in New York City, there's both the administrative function of the Episcopal Church and also the General Convention offices, and they're all housed in that building together. Any questions about this before we move on? No? Okay, so the next one then. Wow, this is fantastic. This is I just want you to see this. General Convention is a marathon, not a sprint. You'll see that the first business starts on Tuesday the 23rd with meetings of legislative committees and officers and legislative committees in the evening, and then goes full tilt all the way through to the 3rd of July. There's a lot of talk about trying to shorten General Convention because some people feel that it is not, it's very hard for people who can't afford to take the time off or who are not paid by the church to do so, or who are living with less money than some others to get there, to lose the money that they would from work. So there's some talk about shortening General Convention or trying to do more parts electronically. Just as a comment, the Standing Commission on Health, the subcommittee I worked on, did all of our work online. We did not travel to meet together, except for a first meeting in St. Louis that all of them had. So it was kind of an experiment. And I think with work, as we all know, you can make online meetings and so forth work. So you'll see that the morning starts at 7:30 for legislative committees, and worship every day. The worship is wonderful and powerful, and the presence of deacons is very strong at the Eucharist. Then legislative sessions, and then more legislative sessions and more legislative committees. The important thing to note is for the deacons that will be there, and I know that, Maureen, you've been thinking a lot about this along with Lori. For those, I am the vice chair of the Legislative Committee on Marriage, and I'm honored to be that. That means I'll be there all the time in that committee where you see the blue boxes. But about half of the deputies, both lay and clergy, or under a half, are not assigned to committees. And they can go to any legislative committee and be put on a speaker's list to testify, to give testimony, or simply watch those committees. So as the deacons figure out which resolutions are the ones they want to watch, that they want to support, or even try to amend, we can get people to go and actually sit in the audience with those legislative committees and sign up to speak and stay in contact with those deputies to influence legislation. And that's a very important piece. As an example, the deputies from the Diocese of Vermont meet every evening at around 9 o'clock to talk about the day, to plan the next day, to talk about what's important to us as a diocesan reputation and what committees need to be watched, what resolutions need to be attended to. So that's the same kind of thing that deacons can do. And just a note, you'll see the 6th day, June 30th, Tuesday, where it says suggested time for seminary gatherings. I believe that that's when the deacons will gather to for a social time and a communication time. Is that right, Maureen? Good. Any questions about the schedule? Okay, let's move on then to the presiding bishop nominees. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but I wanted to just drag down through it so that you can see there are 4 nominees. People can also be nominated from the floor, but these are the 4, and those of you who are not even quick readers notice that there is something missing in the 4. That is a female candidate. And I've been told that many, many women were asked and said, no, not this time, but I don't know that. So there, all of these things I'm showing you, by the way, are available to download from the General Convention website. And Kyle has said I can send him my little list of websites that I think are important, or links that I think are important, and you can look at all of this stuff. But you'll see here that there is a piece on each of the nominees for presiding bishop. Thomas Friedenthal has his vision, biographical information. Michael Curry, same thing. Ian Douglas from Province 1, same thing. And sorry about the moving around. And missed somebody. There's a 4th one there. But
Dabney. Yeah. Dabney Smith is the last one, right?
Is down there as well. So that let's see, the House of Bishops meets quite intensely to decide who they are going to recommend, and then that person has to be approved by the House of Deputies. And that happens, where does that happen? Joint session, presiding bishop nomination and structure on the 2nd day. They try to bring, ideally, it doesn't happen, but they ideally try to bring their nominee to the House of Deputies, not by the 5th or 6th day, so that it doesn't hold up other legislation, because that can sort of get in the way. It's very exciting when that happens. The presiding bishop is brought onto the floor of the House of Deputies and welcomed, and it's sort of a wonderful time. It was particularly wonderful when our current presiding bishop, Catherine, was brought in as the first woman.
Mm.
Let's move on to the next. Is that? Oh, yay, thank you. I think that what's happening now is Julie's bringing up the 2 documents I wanted to spend. Here we go. So these are the legislative committees of the General Convention. And I have highlighted the ones that I think will have most to do with things that deacons are particularly. Can you see my arrow?
Yes.
Okay. So number 6, World Mission. Mm-hmm. Number 7, Social Justice and International Policy. Number 8, Social Justice and United States Policy. Number 16, Environmental Stewardship and Care of Creation. Number 22, and this is where Maureen is, Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse. I should be able to. Those are the ones. So those are the committees that probably need to be most carefully watched. And then if we can go to the next document, which is this is it, great. These are all of the resolutions by topic. And again, this link is available to you on the website. And I've opened these and looked at the ones that I thought would be of most interest to deacons. And I'm not going to go through all of those, but I'm going to tell you where I think they are and ask you, if you download these, if you just simply click on, say, criminal justice, it brings up the resolutions that relate to criminal justice. There, you can see them. So, recommit to criminal justice reform, study, and advocacy. So that's an example of what you'll see. When you click on that in English or in Spanish, it gives you the wording of the resolution, it gives you the rationale for the resolution, and the history of the resolution. So you'll see the current version, what's being struck, what's being added, if it's an amendment, and then the rationale for it is usually there. So it's this is something that I would like anybody who's interested to do in the next week or so, and make sure then that we let Maureen and Lori or me know what resolutions you find are particularly compelling or you're particularly interested in following. So, protect criminal justice. The next one is disabled persons, which is, again, fuller access to the church and to formation for disabled people. Diversity, I think, is an important one to look at. Economic justice. Let's open economic justice if we can. So you'll see there's actually 3 resolutions there. There's support income tax parity, deepen engagement of all people, and affirm relationship-based social justice. And again, if you open any of those, you'll see what's there. So maybe just to open the first one, or deepen engagement of all people, that's fine. So resolved that the House of Deputies concurring that the 7th to the 8th. The reason there's a blank there is some start in the House of Deputies and some start in the House of Bishops, so it, sometimes we're asked to concur and sometimes we're asked to originate. Challenge the baptized throughout all congregations of our church to deepen the gospel work of unmasking attitudes and institutions that help maintain the structural injustice of wealth disparity by ongoing formation of engagement among those on both sides of the wealth divide. So some of them are charges to the church. Some of them are more specific things that we will do that also involve spending money. So if we go back to the longer list, great, and then back again. So that was under economic justice. Then I think the environment is another important place to look. Julie, are you still with us for a while? Or are you doing that? Are you doing the?
Yes, I am.
Yes. So let's. Do you still have some time to open a few more things?
Sure, I'm with you.
Okay. How about opening the environment then? And here's facilitate dialogue on climate change and divestment strategy. And I certainly think that's, I know here in Vermont, that's something that many people are very interested in. And a lot of these things will not only be discussed in committee, they'll be brought to the floor and then they can be amended from the floor. And sometimes some very important changes happen when things are amended from the floor. Historically, the General Convention looks very much like the U.S. Congress for an obvious important reason. In the early years of the Episcopal Church, we had no bishops. So we had plenty of lay people and some other clergy, so that's why the first house was the House of Deputies. And that's sort of historically why we are as well-formed as we are. Let's look at human rights. See what's there. Great. So again, protect human trafficking victims on Indian reservations and support LGBT African advocacy. So these have come from dioceses, they've come from PCABs, they've come from deputies, they've come from bishops. They can originate in various ways, and the way they're numbered shows that. Let's go back and then look at international relations. There are quite a few here. Affirm the work of the Episcopal Church, at the United Nations, work for justice and peace in Israel-Palestine, divest boycott products supporting infrastructure of occupation, pursue justice, peace, and security in the Holy Land. And let's go back now then and look at justice. So this is an establish a response to systemic racial injustice. Let's open this one and look at it. So you see that we'll recognize that from racial profiteering, search and seizure laws, and prosecution to federal mandatory sentencing guidelines, there is a disproportionate application and enforcement of the legal system for people of color in this country, some with long-term or permanent ramifications. So the resolves are where the actual action is, that the General Convention takes steps to establish and coordinate efforts to educate and assist congregations across the country to study, pray, and act for justice. That's sort of similar to what we did in our Deacons Amendment last time of asking people to do the open each meeting with the mention of people living in poverty. Resolve that the General Convention takes steps to establish dialogue with local, regional, and national law enforcement agencies. Resolve that the General Convention urge the Executive Council and the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church to advocate publicly for change in national policies. You'll notice that the word urge is there. And sometimes if a resolution mandates, it's less likely to pass than if it says urge or encourage. And that came up in our Deacons Amendment last time, that a lot of priests didn't want to be told that they had to start every meeting in their parish with the phrase that we suggested, but when it became urged, they seemed to be okay with it. And I think it doesn't mean we can't ask for something to be mandated. It just gets people's hackles up more. But I think some things that should be mandated. So let's go back to, is this okay the way we're going through this right now? I just had a couple more: Native American ministry, ordained ministry, poverty, racism, violence, warfare, and women were the other ones that I had checked. The Native American ministry is supporting ministry on a couple of the reservations where there are dioceses. I had ordained ministry checked for a reason, and I think it was because I wanted to see if there was something coming on the floor about direct ordination, and I didn't see that there was. There have been resolutions before about direct ordination of priests, so that they're not ordained as deacons first, that many deacons supported but didn't pass. I don't think we need to look at this actually. Native American ordained ministry. How about poverty? Let's look at poverty. And what the legislative committees will do, you'll see that there's two poverty resolutions: affirm support for government entitlements and evaluate defense spending. The legislative committee will get these and other things that relate to it, probably the social justice in United States affairs, and then they may try to conflate some into one resolution so that fewer resolutions come to the floor and they have a better chance of passing. That gets messy, and it's where advocacy is really needed. And those of you will remember last time, the deacons' resolution got conflated into a series of about 6 poverty resolutions that all came out as one resolution. We were able to have the deacons' piece be one resolve, but I think that was confusing to a lot of people. So be prepared, Maureen and anybody else who's there, for this whole conflation process. And in the Committee on Substance Abuse, you'll find the same thing. There will probably be more resolutions than we're seeing here, because they're still coming in and being assigned, that will then either stand on their own or be conflated into other things.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Stan, because even in just the few examples that you've shown us, there seems to be, quite a bit of, there seems to be some overlap. So here we are in the poverty topic, and we were just recently in the economic justice topic.
Right.
We have the justice topic, and then we had racism. They were very similar. They
are. And as an example, the Legislative Committee on Marriage is going to receive the resolution recommendations from the Task Force on Marriage, which are about changing the language in the canons to gender-neutral language, and also about authorizing some further study. They always do that, or education. But there are 4 liturgies, I believe, that have been recommended from the Standing Commission on Liturgy and Music to be the marriage liturgies of the Episcopal Church, or to be trial liturgies at any rate. One is the simply taking the words from the prayer book and making them gender neutral. One is taking the marriage rite from the 1928 prayer book and making it gender neutral. One is making available the same gender blessing that came out of our work 3 years ago, and I've forgotten the 4th. But I believe the President of the House of Deputies is asking the Marriage Legislative Committee to take both the Standing Commission on Liturgy and Music recommendations and the Task Force on Marriage recommendations and work with them all together. Deputies are just now beginning to get the information on what resolutions are assigned to what committee. But before we go, before Jan's there, before I'm there, we'll know the resolutions that our committees are working on.
I see.
So that you can read them, print them out, do whatever. One thing I didn't say is the intent of this convention is to be completely paperless. We are all going to be given iPads. We'll have all of the Blue Book information, meaning all the resolutions, all of the procedural stuff on our iPad. And as amendments are offered, they'll come up on our iPads, so there won't be this process of passing out sheet after sheet after sheet of paper. Michael Barlow, who's the executive director of General Convention, said that the cost of renting the iPads is less than the cost of printing all of the paper that they did 3 years ago.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Hopefully, knock on wood, the iPads will work and we won't terrible troglodytes, and it will be exciting. Let's look at racism. Is that possible? I know that, I know that Julie has to be monitoring 2 different meetings right now, so. So again, this list, this drop-down is available on the General Convention website. So direct dioceses to examine the impact of the doctrine of discovery. Which I know is resolved that the House renew the directive to all dioceses made by the 76th and 77th General Conventions to examine the impact, including acts of racial discrimination, racial profiling, and other race-based acts of oppression that the doctrine of discovery is repudiated at the 76th General Convention has had on all people, especially on people of color. So a lot of these are not telling us we have to do something, but they really are setting the moral and ethical tone of the church. So I think they're very important in that way, because then the officers of the church, including the presiding bishop, are really being told to carry these things out over the next 3 years. And all of the standing commissions and committees are given the resolutions that are approved by the General Convention to work on for the triennium. So it's not just meaningless verbiage. They actually, for instance, I was part, as I said, for 3 years working on inclusion of people with developmental disabilities. And those materials are going to probably be in a resolution that comes to this convention as well.
It's also helpful after the convention to find out which committee it was assigned to, so that if you want to follow up during the 3-year triennium, you can.
That's right, and that will be on the website. It's not there immediately after convention, but it's there soon after. Let's look at violence, warfare, and women. So I thought violence first, and then we'll stop after that. So go down to violence. Julie, can you open violence?
Sorry, what was that?
Can you open violence? We're just going to do 3 more. Warfare and then women. Sounds like a poem. So this one is on decreasing gun violence, which I thought would certainly be of interest to so many of us. So this is, again, urging all legislators at state, federal, and local levels to help decrease gun violence by implementing laws that require criminal background checks, banning the sale, transfer, transportation. You can see that this is more specific direction about legislation that we're urging, that the House of Bishops and Deputies is being asked to pass. Which then this is asking our church officials, clergy, and others to, in the triennium, work toward these things. So that they really do have some power and importance. Then let's look at warfare. Go back and look at warfare. Warfare and then women.
I'm seeing women, which was the answer. Warfare.
Challenges and impacts of robotic and cyber warfare. So this is looking at drones. So we bear witness to the moral challenges of the just war tradition and the implications for security, privacy, and other human rights posed by evolving capabilities for cyber warfare by the integration of big data and robotics and by the new types of combat enabled by these trends and so forth and so on. It's clearly an important issue because as human beings are further and further removed from the field of war, I think the actions they take seem less personal and less horrific. And let's look at women. I know there's been a lot of work on violence against women. So this is established coordinator position for women's ministries networks. There are coordinators of many things, and it's been rightly pointed out that there has not been a paid coordinator for women's ministries networks. And seems self-evident. So this is establishing a staff position at the main office to support the ministry and work of women. We can actually go off of this now and just have a general conversation. There is one thing I wanted to ask Maureen to tell us, if you would do that, Maureen. One of the things that is so very exciting to me in terms of the presence and power of deacons at General Convention is the emergence of the AED as a major force. The AED has always had a table at convention, but now Maureen and Laurie and others are talking about a real sort of more lobbying effort, following legislative resolutions, following committees, making our presence known. And I've seen today the design for a wonderful button. So, Maureen, I was wondering if you could tell us a little about the plans that you and Laurie and others are hatching to make the presence of deacons more bigger. And the reason I think it's so important is most of the other parts of the church are there almost as lobbying groups, whether it's the church pension fund or seminaries or ERD or UTO. They're all there pushing their agendas, and I don't mean that in a negative way at all. And I think as deacons, it feels like we're really getting there. So, Maureen, can you give us a few words?
Sure. Well, a couple things that we've done is we have a small group of people that are involved with coming up with ideas about a legislative strategy. And one thing we've done is, or I've done, is gone through all the resolutions and identified about I think it's 16, it could be 17, that have particular relevance to deacons and that deacons could have an impact on in their own diocese, and that they represent a wide range of interest, because the board has to approve. The idea is that the board will then approve 3 of these resolutions to officially endorse. But that doesn't mean that those are the only ones we're going to support. We're going to support other resolutions, encourage deacons to be advocates for causes that are very important to them, and we will help work with them to do that. But as far as not trying to be in 90 million directions, keeping our focus on 3 resolutions, which I'm not sure what those will be right now, because the board will be the ones who come up with those. So that is one of the things. We will have people caucus reports, meet together a couple times a day, either by text or by in person, just to plan what might be happening, to keep abreast of what's occurring. And there will be, for the more important ones that we see as important, we will have one key deacon that will be in charge of that one resolution, and we'll be helping to coordinate the effort in that. And so that's one area where we are going to be visible. We are also going to be participating in the march on Sunday morning with the bishops against gun violence. Are you aware of that one?
Yeah, yes, I am.
Yeah. But one thing that I've been wondering is, there's a lot of legislation now, but a lot of it's very incomplete. They don't have committee assignments yet. How will we keep abreast? What is the most efficient way to keep abreast of what's happening? Because I can think you could go crazy, because it doesn't seem to be coming in a chronological order. It may just be put in certain ways, and it'd be so easy to miss what is happening. So do you have any advice of how we can be tracking these things?
An email yesterday from the General Convention office saying that committee assignments are coming out now. And I think that I'll double check this and get back to you, but I think once they're made, then they appear on the General Convention website. What you you saw that list I said of legislative committees? I think you just go in and click on, say, on governance and structure. And
right. And I've done that.
Ones that are assigned to it. So I'm not sure if there's a way to sort of know right in the minute, unless you're Gay Jennings, what's been assigned where. But I think it would be good to keep watching those key committees and see what new resolutions have been assigned to them.
Yeah. And one thing we have noticed is that, like I said, they're all over the place. My first inclination was to do exactly what you had said in those key committees, but I found that some things that are very important, like promoting Latino theological education, which is an important thing to AED, is under Christian formation, and their important resolutions are located all over the place.
Uh-huh.
I think that in this, I don't want to go off screen right now, but I believe that, I'll double check this when we're finished, but if you go onto this list by topic and click resolution, it will tell you the committee it's assigned to, if it's been assigned.
Right. If it's been assigned. A lot of them, the ones I've been looking at, they're still waiting. So
My guess is that by the end of, by midweek next week, everything will be assigned.
Okay, great.
That's my guess.
And Stan, any advice that you have, I value greatly. You were such an important factor for us in 2012, and I would love to learn anything you have to share. I just appreciate it.
Well, I think just remember that many priests don't work with deacons, so they're not used to the role of deacons, nor are they used to listening to deacons. And one of the things that we said last time 3 years ago was listen to your deacons. But I think they're not some people just aren't used to that or don't even know how to do it. So one of the reason I'm excited about what AED is doing, would you tell them what the button says, Maureen?
Okay, it says, I can find out. I'm sorry. I will look it up right now.
It's got a big zap on it and AED, and it's deacons, what is it, a force for change or deacons?
Yeah, it says Episcopal deacons shocking the church into action.
Episcopal deacons shocking the church into action. That's very prophetic. And you see, I think just the presence, and it's a big button, just the presence of people, this is like a political convention, the presence of people walking around with buttons saying shocking the church into action is going to make people look and think, oh, the deacons are here. The deacons
right.
are not just serving at the worship, which we should and do it. It's perfect, wonderful to do it. It's very powerful. But we're there on the floor. We're there as lobbyists. We're there as committee watchers. That is exactly what we should be doing, and it's happening, and it's very exciting
right.
to me. So that if we're
Maureen, this is Pam. Is there a way that for those of us who are on the floor can connect with you, Lori, or whoever from the floor to say that something is happening? I'm sorry?
Yes, we are trying. That's what we're trying to do is find a way to have a text group that will be communicating about that. So we won't find out things too late. And so if something's really important and people need our help to go somewhere, we can know where to go.
I know in our deputation we do the same thing. We all have each other's cell phone numbers and text so that we can communicate information throughout the day, and that's essential. So I think a text group is a great idea. That, for instance, if somebody realizes that a resolution is coming to the floor, say in the next hour that we weren't expecting, knowing that in advance as it's happening is very important, because it may be that you and Laurie would say, Jan, would you please get in line to speak on the floor? And there are about 9 platforms or stations throughout the floor. It's a huge space, and you go stand there, and I think this year you press something on your iPad so that the president knows that you want to speak, and then she just lets you speak in order. You have 2 minutes to speak this year, not 3 minutes. So people, it's really good to write something pithy and short, get it on the floor, and those speeches can make quite a difference. So
will we have that list of how to communicate? Will that be given to the deputies, Maureen?
Yes, it will be. It will be.
Okay.
It's
you
not
have the
ready
list
yet.
of deputies. You have the list of deputies and our contact.
We do have the list of deputies. We do, yes. And we also have a hashtag. We have a hashtag AED shock for our group for Twitter. So we plan to have a Twitter presence, and where we will also have legislation put on there too for people who are doing tweeting among each other.
I am not a Twitter kind of person. I am a member of Twitter.
But you need to. All deacons need to be on Twitter because we need to be participating in the prayers of the people. That's how we're going to. That is how we are going to interpret to the church the hopes, needs, and concerns of the world, because everything is by Twitter. So
I'm going to get my Twitter account ever to prepare for this one.
Yeah.
But I also think the Twitter group, as silly as it may sound, is a way to get information to people very quickly as well.
Yeah.
I will make sure that I am retrained in Twitter and able and ready to go.
And Jan, there is an AD update on that Tom Lutz has put together, has shown some YouTubes that teach you how to go on Twitter and how to use it. So you can, so it should be on the AD update. I don't know if it's come out yet, but it will be out soon.
Okay.
I noticed that Julie has asked, is it still possible to offer resolutions, and what is the process? Yes, a deputy can bring a resolution to the floor. That's hard to do. It would be better for a diocese to offer a resolution through the office of the president of the convention of the House of Deputies. It's a little late. I mean, having said that, it's a little late to be starting a resolution process at this point. It's better to try to amend an existing resolution to get something in that people really want.
So we are nearing 8:30, and I just wonder if there are any final questions or comments that people would like to make.
I would just like to say again how exciting it is to have deacons really becoming a formidable presence. And I think it's godly work. I think it's the work of Jesus. I think that it's what we're meant to do. And I just knowing, Jan, that you'll be there, Maureen, you'll be there. I know that Lori will be there helping coordinate things. Do you know what the final count was on how many deacons are deputies?
I believe that there are something like there's 30 of each, 30 deputies and 30 alternates.
Okay, so I believe that the House House of Deputies is 800 people. 400 of those are lay, so we're 30 out of 400, but that's growing. And,
it's much bigger than last time.
That's almost 10%. So
one of the things we can continue to make sure deacons know is that they can and should run for General Convention, because that's where the policy, the canons, the moral tone, the structure of the church is determined.
It's interesting, to one of your earlier points, though, Stan, it's a big chunk of time for someone who's a deacon to be able to commit to. So I think it's very difficult.
It definitely is. This is the first time I will be going when I'm out of my private practice. So, you lose 2 weeks, two weeks of billing.
Right.
Or I was in an agency where I had vacation time. But for me, I have the means to do that. But I'm well aware that many people who should be going simply don't. And I think that means that dioceses need to step up and parishes need to step up in terms of offering compensation to people who are, say, lower income workers, blue collar workers, that sort of thing. So we have a more diverse, more representative house.
in all honesty, this is the first time that, I own my own business now, so I'm able to do it. But before, 10 days was my 2-week vacation with my family.
Right.
So it wasn't a matter of finances. It was a matter of I couldn't be out of the office.
And for many people, this is their vacation, which is an incredible statement. And I get it, Jan. I think that you need to be with your family. So there is a lot of talk about shortening convention. I think making it a week or less, so that, because some people say I could do a week. The other thing is this unicameral. I did want to speak to that. A lot of people are not in favor of that because it means that all the bishops, clergy, and lay would be together on the floor, probably sitting by deputations. And as you all know, we take a very serious vow of obedience to our bishops.
Yeah.
And it would be different in debate to be sitting. Right now we sit usually forward, front, and forward and back as a deputation, and it's like a convention. There are flags all over for each deputation. But to have our bishop, as much as I love him there, it would not be as easy to vote one's own mind. And there will be some reasonable thoughts about why that isn't the case. But I know that Gay Jennings has said to me that she really hopes we don't go to a unicameral legislature, because it would, in many ways, lessen the power or the authority or the presence of non-bishops, particularly, I think, deacons.
I agree.
So that will be an issue as well.
Well, Stan, I want to thank you for presenting this to us in a way that we could actually take it in, and walking us through all the steps from the organizational chart to looking at the schedule to walking us through very specific resolutions so we can see how they operate and what to be thinking about, and for those of us that will be there, making some connections about how to be fully present. For those of us who won't be there, giving us some suggestions for how to keep track of and pray for and support the work from afar. And it'll be interesting to see where we are on the other side of convention and to return to this conversation and see what some of the outcomes and some of the directions for the church are going forward.
And again, if you have a burning resolution issue that you're passionate about, please let us know. And also, there's a lot of information flowing out of General Convention every day, so you can watch the General Convention website and other places for that information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, this is terrific. So we thank you. We thank Julie, who is now really behind the scenes. We can't even see her anymore. But without her, these web conferences would not take place. And we anticipate doing a live from General Convention web conference in June. More details to follow. And we hope to keep this monthly web conferencing going. So if you are interested or you know someone who's interested in presenting about a particular ministry that he or she is involved in, please let us know so that we can prepare a schedule going out into the year ahead.
And Kyle, it may be self-evident, but I realized after we talked once that 7 o'clock here is 9 o'clock in Salt Lake City. So
yeah,
it's more possible for people at the end of their legislative day to actually be present for that.
No, 7 o'clock
other
here.
way.
No. It's
5
daylight
o'clock
for
there.
me. It's only 5:30 in Portland.
I shouldn't even, that makes it harder, doesn't it? Or maybe
Yeah, so we'll have to see how that would work. But we can figure out those details, and we'll make sure to get the information out to people. So
I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. I need to scoot. So thank you
very much. We're ending now, and this will be archived for future reference, and we'll send out the link so you can share it with others who are interested.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you, Stan. Thank you, Kyle. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.